Give me liberty or give me death. What is it? Why is it important? And how did it even come to be? The answer to all of that, ladies and gentlemen, is the American Revolution. Now, the American Revolution was the defining conflict in the late 18th century, which was sparked by the growing discontent of the British colonies due to the British taxation and its superior governance. Now, according to Britannica.com, the reason for this was the 7-Year War. The 7-Year War was a war that lasted 7 years between Britain, France, and Spain. And the reason this war happened is because they were fighting over land in the New World. Now, by the end of the war, Britain had gotten a huge part, Spain got a little part, France got a little part. But overall, Britain won. But this left them a poor and desolate country, so they needed a lot more money. So, in order to try and fix their monetary issues, they started the Stamp Act, I believe, of 1765. Yes, 1765, which required all of the colonists to pay a tax on any printed goods. Now, this includes stamps, messages, even just simple poster boards, like wanted posters or something. Now, this was a simple tax, it was a minor tax, but it angered the colonists nonetheless because it only affected the colonists. The other people all the way over in Britain, they didn't have to deal with this, and it was just for the colonists. And they couldn't even defend themselves in court because the highest court available, Parliament, was 3,000 miles away, all the way in Britain. Now, in response to this, in groups like the Sons of Liberty organized protests. Now, granted, the Stamp Act was eventually repealed due to these protests, but Britain didn't learn, so they continued to slap on taxes, including the Townshend Acts of 1767, which taxed all essential goods, including tea, hint hint, and glass. Now, as the resistance grew, particularly in Boston, protests escalated into multiple violent events, including the Boston Massacre of 1770, when British soldiers killed 5 colonists, including Crispus Attucks, who, according to Eric Foner's Give Me Liberty ebook, recommended by the way, he became the first martyr of the American Revolution. These protests continued until the Boston Tea Party of 1773, where the colonists dumped British tea into the harbor, which was the equivalent of $1.2 million, which marked the beginning of armed rebellion against Britain. Now, in 1775, the delegates from 12 different colonies met in Philadelphia to organize resistance in which George Washington, Richard Lee, and renowned public speaker Patrick Henry, I believe, yes, they, together with the other delegates of the colonies, agreed to form a Continental Congress, which would rise up against Britain and basically openly rebel against it. During this delegation, or whatever, Patrick Henry, he said the ultimate phrase, "Give me liberty or give me death," and this became the calling card of the entire war. Now, a Continental Congress would then halt all trade with Britain, and then they would start preparing for war. Now, the first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord in April of 1775, as colonial militias clashed with British troops. Now, in 1775, there were a lot of battles that did go on, including in the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga and the Battle of Bunker Hill, I believe. Now, the war's turning point actually happened in 1777, with the Battle of Saratoga, where a simple American victory finally convinced France and Spain to join the fight against the British. Now, with this, granted, France and Spain were definitely a limited country in that point, which means they were kind of broke because they were still recuperating from the 7-Year War. But together with Spain, France, and America united together, they were able to weaken down the British forces enough to, by 1781, General Cornwallis, is the main general of the time in the Americas, had to retreat to Yorktown, Virginia, where he expected reinforcements, but they never came. Britain had basically given up on the Americas. Now, on October 19th of 1781, he had to surrender, which this basically effectively ended the war. Now, 2 years of debate would happen after this, and after 2 years of debate, the Treaty of Paris was finally signed, which, in all on its own, recognized American independence. Now, this is important because this recognizes America as a different country, a separate entity, if you will, from Britain. And it granted the America a whole lot of new territory, even beyond the colonies. Now, all in all, the revolution, it was driven by the pursuit of liberty and self-governance, which resulted in the birth of the great nation we live in today. Now, through resilience, strategic alliances, and key military victories, the American colonists overcame the British Empire, which was definitely a feat back in the day, and secured their place in history. And still to this day, America thrives and has become one of the greatest nations on Earth. And in September of 2025, coincidentally this year, America will celebrate its 250th anniversary of being a nation. Now, any questions? No questions? Alright then. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for. I bid you adieu, and good day.